there's no king in the land. And there would be no other king in that land until the coming of Jesus Christ. And Naomi, being a woman of God's chosen people, she had to be grief-stricken that the death of her husband. After that, her sons would decide to take wives from a tribe that was bathed in disbelief and apostasy. One of them being Orpah, and the other one being Ruth. Now Naomi was having what we call, I guess who's coming to dinner.
All right.
We can relate to that. We can relate to that. Our children doing the very thing that we've not taught them to do, but doing what they want to do. But like many of us, she kept her peace, and she would allow God to do what he wanted to do in their situation. God has a way of working things out, I tell you, all for the good. Now, as they journeyed back to Naomi's homeland, after a short time in Moab, both of her sons had died. You see, life has a way of pouring down on you in an already bad situation. Naomi had lost her family. She had lost the loves of her life. And now she has been stuck with two women whom she asked to depart from her, to leave her alone in grief. She is no good to them, and now they are no good to her. And unlike Orpah, whose name, by the way, carries the Hebrew meaning the back of her neck, which to me could only mean that she was meant to walk away. Ruth implored her mother-in-law that she stay with her, that she not leave her, that she not make her walk away like Orpah. Ruth let her know that wherever Naomi went, she would go also, and that Naomi's God was now her God too. Ruth took the very first step toward redemption, the first steps toward salvation, and that under no circumstance was she about to leave this newfound sisterhood she had made with Naomi. Whatever happened to Naomi, she would incur the same fate. She was her ride or die.
All right.
And she planned on staying by her side no matter what. Now, saints, I tell you, we have come into a time in our lives that we have to dig deep, that we have to find these same connections, to start these same relationships with the ones who are unlovable, most times untouchable, the unwanted women of the world, and bring them into this place of love and forgiveness, because it is the only way we can make it. It is the only way that women will survive. And it is the one thing that will please our God. What good is it if we only serve the ones we love? It's easy to get along with the women that we like, the women that we are compatible with. But what good is it? It's easy to care for those who care for you. But what about the one you can't stand see coming? What about her? What about the one that makes it a point to get on your last working nerve? Is she not worth saving? Is she not meant for redemption and salvation? And while you contemplate that, how many other women think the same thing about you and your salvation? Now, Naomi and Ruth were a good pairing because Naomi had faith, wisdom, and experience. And Ruth had courage and encouragement. And as we read farther into the text, we see that Naomi arrives home. We see that her people, while they are glad to see her, they can look at her and see that she has been through the storm and the rain. Because in Ruth chapter 1, verse 19, someone asks the question, is this Naomi? The very question breeds judgment about her appearance. So much so that Naomi doesn't even want to be called by her name. She asks them to call her Mara, meaning bitter. And we all know some bitter women.
Amen.
We all know some bitter women. And the hand that she has been dealt is not fair by human standards. She is empty and feels as if her God is against her and does not see her in this situation and has no blessings left to give to her. But how how many of you know that God can take your bitterness and turn it into a beautiful testimony? Well, Ruth and Naomi, they were in the right place at the right time. They entered the gates of Bethlehem at harvest time. There was a blessing for them waiting right around the corner. And for Ruth, that blessing would come in the form of a man named Boaz. Now, I must stop here and let you ladies know that there is a difference between a Boaz and a Bozo. We as women cannot go out thinking that our deliverance comes through men. It's one man. Our Boaz has to be Jesus Christ. He has to be our soul salvation. Because the way I see it, many have gone out looking for Boaz only to get a bozo time and time again. Our lives are full of them. We can probably name them all, and some of you might be living with one right now. But that's not what this story is about. Ruth didn't have to come in trying to change Boaz to fit her needs. Okay? She didn't have to throw shade to make him do what she wanted him to do. She didn't have to beg him to work or beg him to come to church, beg him to love her, beg him to supply her needs. He was already the man he was destined to be. Because he had a love for God. He had a love for the things of God. Now you see, Boaz was family to Naomi. And he had a little bit of money. He had some influence in the Bethlehem community. He was well established and esteemed among his people. And Naomi had to know him because she encouraged her sister to go and glean in his fields, to tell her story, and ultimately to be matched up with this mighty man of God. You see, Boaz in this story is a type of Christ, a foreshadowing of the great Savior to come. And it is our job to take these hard-pressed women and usher them to a man who has always supplied her needs, to show her to the one who laid his very life down because he doesn't want to live without her, and she shouldn't want to live without him. To show her that there is a hope in her dark situation. He has been the one who has been chasing us and wooing us and longing for a relationship with us, to show us a love like we have never known before. What the book of Ruth shows us is we need our sisters. And our sisters truly need us. We have to be the bridge that is willing to lay down ourselves and introduce our sisters to a man who came down through 42 generations, who was not accepted by his own people, who would be beaten and bloody only to be nailed to a cross to die, to be pierced in his side, to be laid in a borrowed man's tomb, where he would only stay for 3 days and rise again, victorious with all power of heaven and earth in his hand. So I ask that you take your sister's hand today. Introduce her to Jesus. Love her to life. And bring her to Jesus. Pray for her so that she may come to know him. That she may come to love him the same way you love him. Give her Jesus. Because at the end of the day, that is all we have left to give. Amen. God bless you.